Today is February 16th, 2012. We're in the West Virginia University Library. I'm with
Wilburn J. Whitlatch.
Wilburn. Did you have any nicknames when you were in the service or as you grew up?
Yes, my military soldiers call me Whit or Will.
Okay. What year were you born, sir?
February the 3rd, 1939.
Were you born in West Virginia?
Greene County, Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
just across the border.
Okay. At what age did you move to West Virginia?
In 2001.
Okay. So from 1939 up until your service in the military, did you go to school? Want to talk about your childhood at all? Do you come from a
Just
family?
graduated high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I was prepared to go to Waynesburg College,
Okay.
but John F. Kennedy drafted me.
Okay. So you graduated college in 1960 or
High school in 1958.
1958, and then
Yes, sir.
you got drafted.
Right.
Okay. So as a child, did you want to be in the military at all, or?
No, I wanted to be a farmer, son. I had no intentions. I wasn't patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to live
Mm-hmm.
and be I just love farming. I love dairy,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my dream.
Okay.
And the funny part about it, when Kennedy drafted me,
Mm-hmm.
it says, "Greeting from the President of the United States," I started changing, thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down and seen the recruiter, and I said to him, I says, what is draft? And he says, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I says, well, I kind of don't think I want to be drafted. What can I do? And he says, well, you can enlist for 3 years.
Okay.
And instead of being a U.S., you become an RA. So that's what I did. So I chose to go into mechanics,
Okay.
to be an automobile mechanic, and then it would go along when I came home
Mm-hmm.
with my
Was it there?
dairy,
Mhm.
all of my farm machinery and stuff, and tractors and things. I'd be able to do my own repairs.
Okay.
So that's why I took it, and I went in Fort Jackson, South Carolina,
Okay.
and then as soon as I graduated from there, I went to Aberdeen Proving Ground. So I had 9 weeks in automobile repair out there.
So you entered the Army, and then you went to basic training at Fort Jackson,
Yes, sir.
South Carolina. Do you want to talk about any experiences that you had during basic training? Any of like your happiest moments during that, if you had any, or any of your scariest moments or reflections?
Yeah, the infiltration course probably shaped me up more than anything.
Okay.
Because I don't know whether you're familiar with that or not, but you have little pits and they have some kind of explosives going off in them, and you're going under barbed wire.
Yeah.
You got to flip over on your back and slide with your head, your pot at your helmet.
Yeah.
You slide on it
Mm-hmm.
to get under the barbed wire.
Okay.
And you put your weapon right on here,
Mm-hmm.
on your chest to
Okay.
go under that. And there's machine gun fire going on.
Yeah.
Of course, I probably way ahead of, but when you're a recruit, you don't know whether it is or not.
Yeah.
They tell us not to raise up, and I
Uh-huh.
took their word for it.
So were you scared during that experience?
Yeah. I guess so. I don't, although probably it's just that they're trying to teach you to be under fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd say I was a little
Mm-hmm.
maybe scared at that time, if that's the word you want to use.
How were the other people in your barracks while you were going through basic training? Were they there as a system of support, or?
Yes, except when I was in, we had a bunch of Puerto Ricans,
Mm-hmm.
and they was split up into the barracks,
Okay.
like 4 squads. They would bust them up, putting them around, and had an experience right there in basic training. The squad leader throwed one of those Puerto Ricans down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
He ran outside and we don't know what he said, but it wasn't very long till there's about 50 Puerto Ricans outside.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, dang, I'm gonna get killed before I go to Vietnam. So
Mm-hmm.
the MPs come and quieted it down, and
Okay.
then it got ratified. I don't know how, I didn't.
How were your drill instructors? Were they mean? Did they have a lasting impact on you over time?
Yes, they did. I'm gonna tell you something. I never thought they were mean.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk mean, and you see these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably true, as near as they can make it. But the way I looked at it, son, that man was there to teach me,
Mm-hmm.
to save me a life.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I was going to listen to and try to perform everything he told me.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe if our young troops, when they go in, would look at that guy
Yeah.
as their instructor like he is,
Mm-hmm.
and don't get angry at him, and if he shouts at you, he's got a reason. Maybe you did something that he's trying to instill in your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he has to have discipline.
Okay.
Because if NCO or commander don't have discipline,
Mm-hmm.
ain't nobody going to go in facing a machine gun.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But you rise above that, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put your fear aside.
Okay.
I think that's what we all learned to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I praise my DIs, and I hope and pray that we got DIs teaching all the young boys and things now that was dedicated like the ones I had, because I think mine were real dedicated to us.
Do you still remember their names? If you had to think back to your drill instructor, could you remember their name right now and stuff like that?
Well, I can remember I had a Sergeant Edwards. he was a stern, well-cut guy,
Okay.
and he tried to come across real mean, but I never did think he was.
Okay.
I can remember him, and then I had Sergeant Perjolis,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't spell that for you, but he was, I think, kind of like Italian maybe,
Okay.
and he was but he was tough,
Okay.
but he was good to you,
Mm-hmm.
and he was trying to teach us, that discipline, I tell you, that troops need.
Yeah.
You can't go out and say, well, we're going to vote on this before you go into battle. I'm afraid it don't work that way.
So after Fort Jackson, South Carolina, you went to training school.
Aberdeen Proving Grounds
Mm-hmm.
in Maryland,
How long were you there for?
9 weeks,
9 weeks. And this was also in 1962.
62,
Okay.
March,
March of 62.
yeah.
What did you do there at the school? What was your job? You said a mechanic.
Yeah, we were trained to work on Jeeps,
Mm-hmm.
trucks, tanks,
Okay.
and tanks was a big experience for me because I had never worked on a big thing like a tank.
Uh-huh.
And these little M60 tanks that we worked on,
Mm-hmm.
when I look at these Abrams these boys have got today, man, that thing looks like a toy.
They're like Corvettes.
Yeah, about the same.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was it like working on a tank? What would you do? Would you go underneath it, or what kind of mechanical work would an example be that you would do on a tank?
Well, the big thing is, mostly was they wanted to teach us how to change the power pack.
Mm-hmm.
And the power pack in a tank is complete, like engine, transmission, and differential
Okay.
is all together.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was big as this table bigger,
Okay.
and had all quick disconnect, and it was sealed so you could take it in water.
Okay.
They could go put their snorkels on and go under right through the water,
Okay.
and that stuff was electrical, had to be, so it was waterproof.
Okay.
Well, in the battlefield, they taught us to work on these tanks and things and pull the paints and stuff out in the battle if we was under fire.
Okay.
And you had to learn that. And I got to where I could pull a whole power plant
Mm-hmm.
and reinstall one in 20 minutes.
Okay.
But everything's fast disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could do that kind of fast speed like I can back then.
Yeah.
Kind of lost my speed, son.
Mhm. So, following your 9-week training, where did you go from there?
They put us on a plane
Okay.
in Baltimore,
Okay.
and we flew nonstop
Mhm.
to Oakland, California.
Oakland.
Yes,
Mhm.
and we were there in two weeks to go overseas, preparing us to go overseas.
Mhm.
Some of them went to Vietnam. I went to Alaska,
Okay.
and they put us on troop ships.
Mhm. So, in between Aberdeen and Oakland, you didn't have time to go home, see your
No.
family, or anything
No.
like that.
No, as soon as I finished my course in Aberdeen,
Mhm.
I was out of there,
Okay.
nonstop. I can remember that's the first time I ever flew.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite an experience.
Mhm. So, in Oakland, you boarded a ship, you said?
Yeah, troop ships.
A troop ship?
Yeah, that's what they are.
Mhm. And you went to Alaska?
I did, yes.
Mhm.
Some of the boys went to Vietnam.
Mhm. What did you do in Alaska? Where were you stationed?
Fort Richardson, Anchorage, Alaska.
Okay.
And we had winter maneuvers up in Mount McKinley.
Okay.
And we seen 100 or so below zero in tents.
Mhm.
And I could dream of my block buildings back at Fort Rich when I was up there in my tent freezing. But it was good experience.
Mhm.
But whether I gained that much experience
Mhm.
or not, because you will adapt, son.
Okay.
I don't care, whatever they send you, you're going to adapt.
Mhm.
Just like I wasn't trained for Vietnam to go into the jungle.
Mhm.
So that's probably why they didn't send me.
Mhm.
But some of the DIs worked on us
Mhm.
just in case. But the group I was with, wasn't designated, but we didn't know that.
Okay.
So they trained us some for Vietnam, but
Mhm.
because the war was just getting ready to kick off good when I.
Yeah, in the early 60s.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
So, but they kept us all trained in Alaska
Mhm.
in case we were needed.
Mhm.
So yeah, I look back and I see, and I wonder, I've seen stories about some of these boys when they're
Mhm.
training them in the Marine Corps, down in Parris Island.
Yeah.
They drowned or something.
Mhm.
I wonder sometimes how that happens,
Mhm.
because the DIs I had, son, it wouldn't have happened with
They
me.
would have let it out. Mhm.
So I'm not blaming the DIs down
Mhm.
there because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes, you get fear.
Mhm.
And maybe some of the boys got scared
Mhm.
and panicked
Mhm.
and drowned.
Okay.
I just wouldn't blame anybody for that.
Yeah. No.
It's just the casualty
Mhm.
that happens,
Yeah. What were some of your experiences in Alaska? You said it was like negative 100 degrees, but
Yeah.
what was like your day-to-day activity and stuff? Like, what would you do?
We had to march from our barracks to a big block building where we
Mhm.
worked on things like just a big garage.
Okay.
And you worked on everything from jeeps, tanks, and whatever.
Mhm.
And you worked in a motor pool where you had to keep everything on that post
Mhm.
prepared in case anything happened.
Mhm.
War, bam, you had to have everything ready to go, roll.
Okay.
So we tried to keep that up to date.
Mhm.
And yeah, and that's where I made my E5 stripes.
Okay. All in Alaska, in the motor pool, or?
Yes, sir. And then I became a motor sergeant for maybe a year before I was discharged.
Mhm. And how big were the tents that you were staying in?
The
What-
tents?
What were the living? Was it extremely cold? You said.
Oh yeah.
But
Like,
was there a fire or anything, or
we
heat?
had try to explain, like a teepee,
Mhm.
Indian teepees.
Yeah.
Only thing on the sides,
Mm-hmm.
they were come up straight,
Okay.
and then they went like a teepee,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, you had your shell,
Mm-hmm.
then you had a liner inside,
Okay.
and that kept the severe cold from
Mhm.
coming right, penetrating right through.
Okay.
Then we had what they call Yukon stoves.
Mm-hmm.
They were just sheet metal, and they were about, I'd say this long,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this wide,
Okay.
and maybe about that tall,
Mm-hmm.
and they had legs on them. Well, they had a little hole here for the burner, and we had a burner that you used regular gasoline,
Okay.
turned upside down, and it fed through a little valve
Mm-hmm.
and trickled in and fired that.
Okay.
Well, you could have that stove cherry red. And I remember my bunk, I had it about this far side that had my shell,
Okay.
2 sleeping bags, and I still was cold. So.
Okay.
And that stove, I look over there, that stove's cherry red, and I thought, that stove should be putting out more heat. The tremendous cold.
Mm-hmm. How many people were in the tent with you?
It was a 10-man tent, so
Okay.
they roughly 8 to 10. It was full.
Mm-hmm.
And you had little cots. You've seen these army cots?
Yeah.
Well, we slept on them
Okay.
because the tundra up there. I don't
Mhm.
know whether you're familiar with tundra.
Yeah, the Yukon times.
Yeah, it has like ice
Mhm.
frost in with the earth.
Okay.
So when if you put too much heat up here,
Mm-hmm.
like we used M40 slaves to heat our tents,
Mhm.
we put trucks and tanks into.
Yeah.
Well, the first experience I had this, you had a big, probably 12-inch tube
Mm-hmm.
for the heat.
Okay.
Then you had it broke down into four little tubes. And you could put those tubes, because you had to have them where the heat could come out, keep you
Okay.
warm, because you was on that frozen tundra.
Yeah.
So I'm there working my first night that I was experiencing in Alaska.
Yeah.
And I don't know, probably I was there under there an hour or so, taking the bolts out. I was doing the underneath, and my buddy was up in the cab taking the floor
Yeah.
out and everything to help me out. And I thought, well, this truck's getting closer to me. Well, the wheels were sinking in that tundra, and it was getting closer. It was a little bit scary at first, when I first realized what was happening. But
Mhm.
then after that, we
Realized.
realized you don't put the heat to the wheels where the wheels are on the tundra.
Mm-hmm.
So after you learn that, you adapt. Like I said, you adapt.
Mm-hmm. When you guys would go to sleep at night and you were with, I guess, other 8 to 10 people in your tent, would you guys talk at all about home and things like that, or what was like most of the conversation about?
There wasn't any.
Mm-hmm. There wasn't any. Everyone was tired from work, or.
You worked 12-hour shifts,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the midnight crew.
Okay.
So I worked from 6 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And no, you were too tired. When you hit that
Mhm.
bunk, you went to sleep even though you woke up cold. You went to sleep. And then, believe me, you woke up cold because sooner or later that cold got to you, even
Oh, yeah.
regardless of how tired you are.
Mm-hmm. And was that 7 days a week, or?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's when we were out in the maneuvers.
Okay.
And them nice warm barracks back there in Anchorage.
Mm-hmm. And then what would you do if you ever had any off time besides sleeping? Were you only allowed on base, or were you allowed to leave?
When you're on maneuvers, you don't have time off.
Okay.
You're 7 days a week.
Okay.
And then, when you're back on post,
Mm-hmm.
you had the weekends off.
Okay.
And you could go to town,
Mhm.
get a bus. Your buddy, if he had a car or something,
Mhm.
you could. But up there, cars had electrical heaters.
Mhm. Oh, really?
Yeah, you had like a Old West where you hit your horse,
Mm-hmm.
where you had to plug your car in at night when you come in,
Huh.
or you wouldn't start it the next morning
Yeah.
because it would be it wouldn't turn over.
So backtracking a little bit to the maneuvers and stuff like that, were you guys going around like the outskirts of Alaska, like you said? And you said, sorry. So you were doing, do you want to talk about that? Like what exactly the maneuvers were and things? Or?
Well, they just had 2 weeks of maneuvers.
Okay.
But you'd start moving all the equipment and everything out in November.
Okay.
Before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Then you spent Christmas in the fields.
Okay.
Then you didn't get back after, the maneuvers was generally in February.
Okay.
Well, other countries would come in and have maneuvers with us,
Okay.
just like they do today.
Yeah.
And then you was out there moving everything back in, and you didn't get it back in till probably April.
So it's a 6 month.
So you're out all winter in that freezing. And
what other countries did you do maneuvers with?
well, I know Canada did.
Okay.
And at that time, see, I wasn't in the infantry,
Okay.
so I don't know. All I had to do was keep those vehicles rolling.
Okay.
That was my responsibility.
If like a Canadian vehicle broke, would you?
No,
They had their own guys.
I guess because
Mhm.
I did. In fact, I'm not so sure what the other countries bring in. I don't think they brought vehicles in. Maybe we
Okay.
supplied them.
Supplied them.
Only with the infantry, see, they had their assault weapons and all their
Mm-hmm.
things to kill and stuff
Yeah.
with. Then they brought that with them.
Yeah, there's a pretty big weather difference between like Vietnam and Alaska and stuff.
Yeah.
So how did they correlate doing maneuvers in Alaska and stuff like that? Was there a reason behind that? Did you ever hear? When?
We didn't do Vietnam maneuvers
Okay.
because you couldn't do it in extreme
Yeah.
cold because Vietnam was a jungle,
Yeah.
humid and hot, rainy a lot.
Yeah.
So if which there was a war there,
Yeah.
so there wasn't maneuvers. I'm sure. It was.
Yeah.
You learned real quick when you hit noms the way I took it.
So were they training you guys possibly for something in like the Soviet Union or things like that, or what was like their goal, I guess?
Yes,
of that?
I would say so.
Mhm.
Because when President Kennedy got shot, we were on red alert right now.
Yeah.
And those mountains up there, I'll just say we have a few Nikes up there.
Okay.
But believe me, those Nikes reported to Moscow.
So you were in the service during the Cuban Missile Crisis and stuff like that, correct?
Let me see.
That was in 62 or 61?
See, that I think they were just 62, weren't they? Yeah, I would have been there, but I was in Alaska.
Okay.
So I know I have veterans now that talk to me that they was ready to come out when that Cuban crisis hit, but they didn't. They extended them.
Okay.
So they had an extra 6 months until that Kennedy got that straightened out.
But during that time, like during that week or the 13 days when the nation was like on edge, how were you guys preparing? Did you guys like change your daily routines and things like that?
No, because we were there to protect Alaska.
Yeah.
Any invasion in Alaska, that was our job.
Okay.
We weren't, in fact, I don't even remember them talking to us about other parts of the world, Germany or Cuba or anything. So I can't tell you about that, son.
Okay.
I was trained for one thing, and that was to stop an invasion from coming through Alaska if at all possible.
And then, as you progressed up, you said did you start at an E1 and work your way up to an E5?
Yes.
Did you do that all while you were in Alaska, or?
Well, I started out E1 when in basic training, and before I got my all my basic in, E2 is automatic.
Okay.
Is unless you mess up, you know,
Mhm.
it's just awarded to you.
Mhm.
And then I think probably, I'm not sure, but I think probably I got PFC when I got to Alaska.
Mhm.
So my E2, I got it in probably Aberdeen Proving Ground. I'm not real sure now,
Mhm.
but I know it's a time limit deal.
Yeah.
And I think I got my E3 at PFC when I got
Yeah.
to Alaska. I got E4 in Alaska, and I made E5 in Alaska.
Okay. When the promotions happened, were you happy at all, or did it change your mindset at all? Like, did you gain more leadership? Since you were just an enlist, I guess you weren't like a leader, but.
Well, you automatically almost are going to get E4
Mm-hmm.
regularly.
Okay.
But then when you go E5 and higher,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be a slot
Okay.
for you to be able to get that
Mm-hmm.
that slot.
Mhm.
You got to have an opening for the rank to be
Mm-hmm.
bestowed on you.
Okay. So you became a motor sergeant there.
Right.
Mm.
Well, I don't know what happened. I don't know what they did to him because I
Mhm.
never seen him after that. But the previous motor sergeant
Mm-hmm.
just tore his stripes off and walked out and threw them
Oh,
on the
really?
desk.
Mm-hmm.
So Lieutenant Amber was the motor officer. So next day he talked to me and asked me if I would take it.
Okay.
And I told him yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he put me in as a temporary sergeant,
Mm-hmm.
E5. And then I went to him and I told him after a month, I says, well, if I don't get the pay and the rank, sir,
Mhm.
I says, I'd like to be put back out on the floor where I
Okay.
can work as a mechanic.
Yeah.
So within a month I was promoted to E5.
Okay. And was that late in your tenure in Alaska?
No, I was, I think I was only about 19 or 20 months in the military when I became E5, which in time of peace is pretty
Mm-hmm.
rare.
Okay.
But it just so happened that that other motor sergeant threw a fit
Mm-hmm.
and walked out.
Mm-hmm. So following Alaska, you left in what year?
From the United States.
Did you go anywhere after Alaska while in the service, or
Did I what?
did you were you deployed anywhere from Alaska, or did you go to another
No,
base, or
no, I was stayed in Alaska.
through 1964? Okay. Then after 1964, where did you go?
Well, when they shipped me out,
Mm-hmm.
they used Oakland.
Okay.
When all returnees come back in from Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
you come back in Fort Lewis, Washington,
Okay.
and then they issue your separation there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you are discharged, or not discharged, you're separated there.
Okay.
Then they'll give you travel pay home, and you can
Mm-hmm.
drive, or you can fly, or
Okay.
bus, or whatever you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Question about your time in Alaska. How was communication? Did you ever get to call home or send a letter or anything?
Oh
like
yeah, I
that?
wrote all the time, and in 1964, March the 29th of 1964, they had that big earthquake.
Okay.
Now that was an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so being a sergeant, I got all my squad's phone numbers,
Okay.
and I called them and called my mother, and I could get through.
Okay.
And I gave my mother all their phone numbers to call their parents, because my mother told me they didn't know what was going on. The news
Okay.
wasn't as good as it is now. So anyway, those parents really thanked my mother for
They
being
found out
able-
through the communication.
But it was just a common thing, son.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta let other parents know, because I was a sergeant.
Yeah.
I felt it was my duty
Mhm.
to take care of the men under me.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you know, because you can't think of yourself. You've got to think of your men.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I tried to do.
Okay. And how did where was the earthquake? Was that the epicenter? Was that near where you were in
Yes.
Alaska?
I can't remember now where it was, but
Mhm.
I'll just give you a little experience. I marched my troops
Okay.
in. We quit at 5.
Okay.
And we all went to the as soon as I dismissed them, they ran into the chow and got in,
Mhm.
and I come in right behind them and ate.
Okay.
Well, I think it was like 5:29 or
Mhm.
right in that area. I was back after I finished chow and I just laid down and I must have went right to sleep.
Mhm.
Guys would want to go bowling or something, theater.
Mhm.
They'd come in sometimes and I had a cadre room with another
Okay.
sergeant. And I remember he was laying there asleep
Mhm.
when I went in. And so my bunk started dancing. Well, I thought these guys was shaking my bunk, wanting me
Mhm.
to go to the movie or something.
Yeah.
And I'm laying on my stomach.
Mhm.
Well, I just rolled over to tell them, I don't think I want to go, fellas. I'm too.
Mhm.
About that time, concrete started popping off the ceiling on me.
Oh.
So, it scared me.
Mhm.
I ran out.
Mhm.
Well, I just got out the door and I thought, oh, I left Van Ripper in there.
Mhm.
So I started to go back in and he opened that door. I was glad to see him. I didn't have to go back in that building. But those buildings are made in joints,
Mhm.
sections, and they go up and down like an earthquake.
Oh, okay.
And those buildings, telling you, son, I'm not exaggerating. This one would be up, the middle one would be down,
Mhm.
the middle one would come up, and the two end ones would go down. And you've seen waves in the water?
Yeah.
That's the way the earth was doing, and I'm not kidding you one bit.
Mhm.
I looked across there after I got over my fright. Well, I don't know whether I ever got over my fright or not.
Uh-huh.
But I seen those cars that was sitting over at the movie theater. One would be down and that waves was going through the earth. And them cars didn't touch each other.
Uh-huh.
They didn't slide or anything, but it was the most, I can't believe it yet, but I seen it.
Mhm. And was that only a one-time experience, or were there other earthquakes while you were there?
Oh yeah, you about every hour on the hour you had an aftershock.
Okay.
And I think, if I remember right, that earthquake it was a big one. I just
Mhm.
forget the like around an 8 maybe.
Mhm.
And yeah, and you'd have a aftershock. You'd just
Okay.
shake everything and start,
Start doing it again.
yeah. And it done that for, I think, it just got a little less,
Mhm.
but I think it done that for a week. It seemed like, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like to me it did.
Mhm. So you were the one though who did call home and let your mother know who
Yes.
passed on.
Yes,
Mhm.
I was able to get through because I was in NCO.
Mhm. How were you away for holidays and things like that? Or,
No, I never came home only through June because I came home to help my brother put the hay up and stuff
Mhm.
like that, so he wouldn't have to do it all by himself.
okay. So you were home for the holidays?
No,
You weren't?
no. I always stayed in Alaska through Christmas,
Mhm.
Thanksgiving, New Year's.
Mhm.
No, I came home in June.
How was that, like on Thanksgiving and stuff? Were you with your troops and stuff? Did you think about home and things like that, or?
I didn't.
Mhm.
I seen a lot of boys crying
Mhm.
and you'd hear them crying in their sleep at night and stuff. You just tried to not let on like you're
Mhm.
babying them,
Yeah.
but you had to try to show concern what I think I tried to do was keep them busy so their mind wouldn't get on their families.
Mhm.
Because son, I don't remember ever getting homesick, so I guess
Yeah.
I'm a fortunate person.
Okay.
But some of those kids was never away. Well, I was never away from home till that either. But
Mhm.
don't ask me why. I just didn't get
Just
homesick.
that.
I
Mhm.
can't explain that to you.
Yeah. So once you got to Washington, did you go straight back to Greene County, Pennsylvania, or where'd you go from
But
there?
at that time, my brother and them had moved over in Cameron, West Virginia.
Okay.
So I went to Cameron.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How long were you in Cameron for?
Well, I don't know, maybe a week or two, and then I got married and come back to Pennsylvania. Yeah.
So what were your experiences like after you got out of the service? Did you join any veterans organizations and stuff like
No.
that, or?
No. I had the National Guard keep after me,
Okay.
wanting me to join the National Guard, but I had a bad taste about feeling about a National Guard. I said, now, if I'm going to be in the military, I'm in the military, I'm not playing soldier, I want to be a soldier. So yeah, maybe I'm cutting the guard a little short here, I'm not meaning to, but that's just was my feelings about it.
Okay. And you had gotten out of service, you said, 1964 or 1965 was when you were discharged?
1964, September the 30th.
Okay. So from that point on, did you ever re-affiliate back with military and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I look back, I hesitated, but I wanted to go re-enlist and go to Vietnam. I was wanting to volunteer for Vietnam because I felt like I was incomplete as a soldier.
Okay.
I wasn't wanting to go over there and die or anything, but I just thought I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I was about ready to go to re-enlist. I was thinking about it, and my first sergeant was really trying to get me to re-enlist because he told me, he says, Jack, you're a good soldier, and you'd be good to your men. He says, you need to re-enlist. And at that time I was undecided, you know.
Okay.
It was about maybe 3 or 4 months before September, so
Okay.
when I came home in June, and I got to thinking about coming home and getting married and starting a life and getting a farm.
Yeah.
And so I didn't, well, my sister told me my mother would commit suicide was my main reason I didn't re-enlist. Because I couldn't have handled that, thinking about my mother.
Yeah, so family.
Because I had a good mother.
Family was the part that kept you
From re-enlisting, yes. My mother.
Did a lot of your soldiers that you served with in Alaska, did they ever go over to Vietnam? Or?
No, they weren't. They just wanted to do their time, and I had a lot of 2-year guys who was just drafted, and they just wanted to get their time in and get out back home.
Yeah.
A lot of them was already good mechanics, so I had a lot of help by them being experienced before they came into me.
Yeah.
They were my age. See, a lot of guys were just like 18.
Okay.
Those are the ones that I had to think about that
Get
was homesick. Yeah. I think age maybe has something to do with that part.
So once you got back and you got married and stuff, and did you end up getting a farm or working on a farm?
Yeah, I bought a farm.
And so every like Memorial Day and Labor Day and stuff, would you like support your troops? Would you, I guess?
No, I worked, son.
You were.
All I wanted to do is farm, and like I said, I did my tour, and I'm thankful to God I did do it. But no, I'm not a gung-ho person like that.
Yeah.
If I'm needed, I'm ready.
Okay.
My oldest son was appointed to West Point,
Okay.
and he didn't take it. And then he worked his way through Penn State, and then he enlisted into the military, and I couldn't understand that at all. But anyway, he went to the first Gulf War when Saddam was in Kuwait. And I tried to re-enlist then.
You tried?
I tried to go with him. They wouldn't even talk to me. That always aggravated me. Because I was a patriot, and I thought that they should have let me win. That was my son, you know.
So you did support your family and going to the military and stuff like that.
Pardon?
I said you did support your family and going, like, if somebody in your family today came and said they wanted to join, would you tell them to do it because of the patriotic duty and stuff like that, or?
No, sir. I have a grandson now standing right now ready to go to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't departed yet, but he's going to depart this month.
Okay.
Did I try to get him that stop? No.
Mhm.
Did I pump him up? No.
Mm-hmm.
I just told him to, the main thing is, son, when you get over there,
Mm-hmm.
do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Put Jesus ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way you gotta live.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know where or what's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just be prepared.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of advice would you give to like an 18-year-old today if they didn't know whether to go to school or to join the Army and stuff like that? Do you think the benefits and stuff with the Montgomery GI Bill and things, do you think that it is a way to do it, or?
Well, there's different ways. I would never tell a boy to go to the military.
Mhm.
I'd never tell a boy not to.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never try to tell a boy to be patriotic
Mm-hmm.
or not to be patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
I think a person's got to mentally
Mm-hmm.
get themselves prepared
Okay.
for that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like my grandson, I never talked to him 2 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he has to make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
And and as far as this GI Bill,
Mm-hmm.
it's not cracked up what it's supposed to be. To me, it's a sham.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had the Montgomery Bill.
Yeah.
Well, they don't tell you when you're separated, son, you only got 10 years to use it.
Okay.
Well, tell me this, and I'd say this to the Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want you to listen, Congress. Why should I have only 10 years?
Mhm.
It should be my lifetime to decide.
Mm-hmm.
If I have it,
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to use it in my lifetime.
Exactly.
And if I never use it,
Mm-hmm.
then they don't have to worry about the money.
Mm-hmm.
But do you owe it to me? Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, did you find that out? I know you've come back to school and stuff. Did you find that out later on when you
Yes.
went to go use it?
You couldn't. When I started to go back to school,
Mm-hmm.
I started in Wheeling College,
Okay.
and I got 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got a letter. Your funds are cut off. Well, I had children then. I couldn't afford to go to college.
Yeah.
So after my kids, and then I had a upward bound
Mm-hmm.
try to get me in here to go to school.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. So you had no idea, and then 6 months in, they tell you.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of discouraging. So that's one thing I wish Congress would straighten out.
Mm-hmm.
If you give me something, don't take it back or put a time
Mhm.
limit on
Yeah.
it. What would happen if all the GIs that's in this country,
Mm-hmm.
World War II,
Mm-hmm.
Korea, and I had a brother in World War II, I had one in Korea,
Okay.
and I'm a Vietnam veteran,
Mm-hmm.
and my oldest son is a Gulf War veteran in
Mhm.
'91. Now my grandson's going to be Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
If you give it to them, don't take it back.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be an Indian giver, and I'm
Mhm.
part Cherokee,
Mm-hmm.
so I just think that's not right.
Yeah, no.
That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
What if every GI that was called up, and I know there's not a draft now,
Mm-hmm.
but say there was a draft. Okay, what if they had all sat back and calculate, well, what am I going to get before I go?
Mm-hmm.
And the country don't have anybody to stand in the gap.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen to us, son?
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
Yeah. So, do you use Veterans Affairs and stuff nowadays, or
Pardon?
do you use like the VA and?
Yes, I
Things like
have VA doctors, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally disabled right now, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're going to be able to do to me,
Mhm.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
My spine from my brain to my tailbone is herniated and pain
Okay.
and stuff, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's starting to get me with pain. And
Mm-hmm. And is that from your military service, or is that just from later in life?
yes, I got hurt in the military, but they are not enough medical evidence to give me my
Mhm.
pension, son.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've been fighting that for 52 years.
Okay. How'd you get hurt in the military?
I was just, before I became a motor sergeant, I was under a vehicle and I was rolled out from under, my buddy was putting an engine assembly on a crane, bringing it over to the
Mhm.
truck. Well, he didn't see me come out from under there, and I'm coming out and I'm sitting up on my creek getting ready to get up.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up and here's this engine coming down on me. And I hollered, but he crushed me down like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to tell him it hurt my neck and
Mhm.
back then.
Yeah.
Well, they treated me with heat and muscle spasms.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in my record, see?
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's not sufficient to prove that I was injured.
Okay.
I don't understand that.
Mm-hmm. They never gave you an X-ray or anything like
Well,
that? Or?
no, and another thing, if they did back then, them x-rays just looked like a cloud to me. I never did know how a doctor read those,
Yeah.
but, you know, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Miraculous how they did.
Mm-hmm.
But then in 1974, I think they found a tumor inside thoracic 4 here.
Okay.
Well, that explained now. I can see it now.
Mm-hmm.
Why doctors, when I'd go in complaining about between my shoulder blades, well, here that thoracic 4, they told me it was a tumor,
Mm-hmm.
was a benign, not cancerous. It was calcium
Yeah.
leaking out of thoracic 4 where it had been cracked
Okay.
and putting pressure on my spinal cord.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since I've been fighting the VA and now I'm learning a little bit about computers, I got my MRIs
Mm-hmm.
and I can see what they're talking about. I can see where the spinal cord is
Yeah.
pinched.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the reading along with and it talks about your nerves there, comes
Mhm.
around to your heart and
Yeah.
your lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why these doctors thought I had pneumonia, and I knew I wasn't sick. I was hurt, you know.
Yeah.
And they doctored me for pneumonia and stuff all these years.
Yeah.
And I have to, it's not funny really, but
Yeah.
I have to chuckle about it
Mhm.
but technology now, son,
Mm-hmm.
with the MRIs, now they can see everything about me. Would you think, that after I said this all these years, and then now here's their own technology, not mine,
Mm-hmm.
justifying me a pension?
Yeah, exactly. From that, getting hurt then and stuff.
Does that sound unreasonable?
No, not at all.
Does that sound like, and they put me the first 20 years through psychiatrists tell me I had a mental problem.
Mhm.
I wasn't injured.
Okay.
And I was 3 weeks in Pittsburgh
Mm-hmm.
with a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
So is this the treatment veterans should be getting?
Mm-hmm.
I asked my government, I'll ask him.
Mm-hmm.
Is
And
this,
these psychiatrists, are they military Veterans Affairs psychiatrists or?
as either that or sometimes they could be students.
Mhm.
I really don't know. Because I know the VA works with University of Pittsburgh and
Mhm.
stuff up there. And so that's one question I can't say for sure, but
Mhm.
I don't know whether they're strictly VA or students and
Mhm.
the VA's training them.
Okay.
The psychiatrists.
Mhm.
I think the VA psychiatrist works with like the neurosurgeons do.
Okay.
They work with students. So the girl I had she might have been in med school
Okay.
and was ready to graduate to be a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
And I've often wondered about her because I pulled a little trick on her.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I was home
Uh-huh.
trying to support my family because
Mhm.
the VA wasn't paying me. 3 weeks I was in there, I didn't have no income.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, see, the country doesn't realize you serve your country and then
Mhm.
how hard it is for us to try to be able to live.
Yeah.
And then if we're injured, to try to work and live.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's another thing without getting some help.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I grabbed aspirins or whatever I could and
Mm-hmm.
tried to go to work the next day, son.
How does has your son had similar issues and things like that with VA? or?
Well, see, I was smarter.
Mm-hmm.
I went before him, see,
Okay.
so I experienced the VA.
Mm-hmm.
So my son was in 82nd Airborne.
Okay.
Well, I don't know whether you're too young, but
Mm-hmm.
they were going, you may have heard it, and you're in history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, have you heard of Noriega?
Mm-hmm.
And they were going in after him,
Mm-hmm.
or was that Mark? I think it was Noriega, right?
Okay.
Where they went in and a night invasion
Yeah.
and got him, captured him, brought him back here and tried him, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I think it was Noriega.
Okay.
And my son was training for a night drop. Of course, he wasn't allowed to tell us anything during
Okay.
this.
Mm-hmm.
And his dropping, he had jumped out of the plane where his rucksack would not drop. See, your rucksack, which is 40 pounds,
Yeah.
and it's carried up here,
Mm-hmm.
but when he pulls a rope, it drops down to his level of his feet. They hit
Okay.
the ground the same time as his feet.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps him from breaking his back.
Yeah.
So anyway, he fractured, he couldn't see in the dark,
Okay.
and he fractured his, I think, right heel
Mm-hmm.
and L5 vertebrae.
Okay. So his leg end is.
The L5 is down here.
Okay.
And so anyway, he called me that night.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, he said, Dad, I said, well, did you go to the hospital and did they x-ray? And, oh, no, Dad, they told me I was all right. I said, don't you buy that.
Mm-hmm.
I says, you tell your company commander,
Mm-hmm.
there's an old man up here that's going to come down and look him in the eye and demand that he x-rays my son and see if he's injured.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me back that night and he said, Dad, I'm coming home.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't x-ray him.
Mm-hmm.
He come over here at WVU,
Mm-hmm.
got his x-rays, and then he showed them to me.
Okay.
And I could see the cracks in his L5 vertebrae.
Oh yeah.
Well, now he's got that documented.
Mm-hmm.
He's 40, maybe 40, he'll be 45, I think,
Mhm.
the first day of March.
Okay.
He's got that documented, he's got 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I says, go back in now
Mm-hmm.
and keep it going in for your percentage.
Okay.
By the time you're 60,
Yeah.
you might not be walking very good.
Okay.
Because I said, son, that's the way it gets you. I mean, my back is totally,
Oh yeah, deteriorate. Mhm.
and I says, I don't know, I hope it never does to you.
Mm-hmm.
But no, don't let them get away with that. You just keep your record. Make sure you've got a record, because I
Yeah.
didn't,
Mm-hmm.
and look what they've done to me.
Yeah.
So I try to tell every veteran,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you got a hangnail,
Mm-hmm.
go to the dispensary,
Okay.
get a record.
Mm-hmm.
Get a record. Now, I
Just so
can't,
it follows you with you and stuff.
I
Like
can't speak loud enough. Get your medical records.
Mhm.
Keep them updated.
that. Yeah.
And I don't know, but you know, stop and think a little bit. When you're a private or PFC
Mm-hmm.
and you go to the doctor and you see that big bird colonel sitting on his shoulder,
Uh-huh.
you feel a little bit intimidated, son.
Yeah. So that stops people from going.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of troops don't get doctored properly
Mm-hmm.
because in a way they respect their superiors,
Mhm.
and that rank
Mm-hmm.
can make them think. I know it did me.
Mm-hmm.
So I sometimes think they shouldn't have their insignias.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's just my suggestion.
So is there anything else you would like to say?
No, only I just whoosh
Mm-hmm.
for peace.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was taught to hate communism
Mm-hmm.
and kill Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, son, I was brainwashed
Mm-hmm.
by my own government.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came to school and I learned about Mao Zedong.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught to hate Mao.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if Mao was living today, I think Mao and I could sit down and talk
Mm-hmm.
and have dinner together.
Yeah.
Because you see, from my understanding of Mao in China, maybe he was a communist,
Mm-hmm.
but he loved his people.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I can see a mouse of them.
Mm-hmm.
I was American, taught to hate communism,
Mm-hmm.
but I love my country.
Yeah.
So I come here and I tell my Chinese friends, this is the way I
Mhm.
approach them. My foreign students, I tell them all the same. Brothers, we all got red blooded,
Mm-hmm.
we all got a heart,
Yep.
we all got a brain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's two things left.
Mm-hmm.
We're either gonna hate or we're gonna love.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we love?
Yeah.
And that's, I have to say that sums me up pretty good.
Well, thank you, sir, for serving our country. It's very much appreciated, and everything.
Well, I just wanna say one thing, Aaron.
Mhm.
When people thank me,
Mm-hmm.
I have to put this right back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Think of my dead fellow soldiers that
Mhm.
didn't come home,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're died or missing in action
Mhm.
or whatever,
Yeah.
their families don't know.
Yeah.
So I have to say, they're my heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm finished.